It was Beck Hyen's younger brother's wedding, an event the entire city's elite had waited for. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and every woman in attendance tried not to stare too long at the billionaire heir himself. Beck Hyen, the man whose calm power and sculpted grace could silence a room. But beneath that confident exterior, his heart carried a scar no one could see. Michelle, the woman who'd once made him believe that love was louder than duty, and whose sudden disappearance 4 years ago had left him hollow. Tonight, fate had a cruel yet beautiful sense of humor. As the bridesmaids filed in, Beck Hyen's world stopped spinning. There she was, Michelle Carter, in a soft blush gown that hugged her curves and shimmered like rosewater under the lights. Her deep brown skin glowed against the pastel theme of the hall, her smile still radiant, but her eyes, they held memories. For a long, electric second, they simply stared at each other. Neither blinked, neither breathed. He swallowed hard, gripping his glass. The music faded into a distant hum. The woman he once held in his arms, the woman he lost because of pride, was now standing just a few feet away, smiling for another man's wedding. Later, during the reception, he found her by the garden terrace, standing alone beneath the moonlight, holding a glass of champagne. Her long curls danced gently in the night breeze. Michelle. His voice came out lower than he intended, rough with unspoken emotion. She turned, her expression soft but guarded. Mr. Beck. That formality stung. Once, she used to whisper his name like a secret, Hyen, as though it belonged only to her. He took a step closer, the scent of her perfume, jasmine and something heartbreakingly familiar, flooding his senses. You're still avoiding me, even after all these years? She gave a small laugh. I wasn't exactly expecting to see you here. Seoul feels too small suddenly. I didn't expect to see you again, he admitted quietly. At least not as my brother's bridesmaid. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Your brother's fiancée was my college roommate. She didn't even know about us. Hyen smiled faintly, though there was sadness in it. Maybe that's for the best. Silence settled between them, thick with the weight of what once was. The city lights painted gold reflections in her eyes, and for a fleeting second, he could almost believe nothing had changed. I heard you moved back to Seoul, he said softly. You look happy. She looked up at him, her lips curving slightly. And you still lie beautifully, Hyen. The sound of his name on her tongue sent a tremor through him. He took another step closer, until the warmth of her breath touched his face. I never stopped thinking about you, Michelle. Her heart jumped, but she hid it well. You stopped calling. I didn't stop, he said, his voice trembling with the truth he'd buried. You just stopped answering. Her chest rose and fell faster now. Because you chose your company over me. You let your family's expectations crush what we had. I thought I was protecting you, he said quietly. My world isn't kind to women like you. She scoffed, tears threatening her composure. You didn't protect me, Hyen. You broke me. A long silence. Only the distant music from the wedding filled the air. Then, softly, almost desperately, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I was a coward, he whispered. But not tonight. Tonight, I just want to be the man who once loved you beneath the Han River lights. Michelle closed her eyes, trembling at his touch. You shouldn't say that. Why? He breathed. Because it's true? Her tears finally escaped. Because if I believe you again, I might never let go. He stepped closer, his forehead almost touching hers. Then don't. Their breaths mingled, the air thick with everything unsaid. The world beyond the terrace ceased to exist. No family, no cameras, no expectations. Just two hearts finding their way back to the place they'd once called home. When he finally kissed her, it wasn't fiery or desperate. It was slow, achingly tender, as if time itself bowed to their longing. Her fingers curled against his jacket, and for a moment, all the pain dissolved into the taste of forgiveness. When they finally parted, she whispered against his lips, You'll ruin me again, Beck Hyen. He smiled faintly, his thumb tracing her jawline. Then I'll spend the rest of my life fixing what I ruined. The night wind carried their quiet laughter back toward the ballroom, where everyone danced and celebrated love. But for Hyen and Michelle, their real celebration had just begun. Away from the lights, beneath the silver moon, where lost love dared to find itself again. The wedding ended, but Hyen's heart didn't. In the days that followed, Seoul seemed smaller, more alive, every corner whispering of her. Michelle had returned to the city like a secret sunrise. Quiet, unexpected, beautiful. And he couldn't get her out of his mind. He told himself to let her go again, to stay focused on business and family. But logic meant little to a man who'd already lost her once. So he found her. The small corner cafe smelled of cinnamon and nostalgia. Michelle sat by the window, wearing a cream turtleneck and jeans, looking effortlessly elegant. Her hair fell in soft curls over her shoulders, and sunlight framed her like a painting. When he walked in, her heart betrayed her with a skip. He looked the same, impossibly composed in a black suit, though his eyes were softer now, carrying a sincerity she hadn't seen before. "Still on time for everything," she teased softly as he sat down. He smiled, that quiet smile that once melted her. "You're still impossible to forget." She rolled her eyes, trying to keep her heart guarded. "Flattery? So soon?" He chuckled. "You call it flattery. I call it confession." For a while they just talked. About ordinary things, her new job as a marketing consultant, his company's expansion to New York, the wedding, mutual friends. But beneath the polite conversation, something unspoken flickered. At one point, she laughed at one of his dry jokes, her eyes lighting up exactly like before. That sound, the laugh he used to wait for, hit him like a warm wave. When she noticed him watching her quietly, she stopped mid-laugh. "What?" He leaned back, his voice low. "I missed that sound." Her smile faltered, her heart aching at his honesty. "You can't just walk back into my life with words like that, Hyen." "I'm not walking," he said gently. "I'm crawling if I have to." That made her laugh again, but her eyes shimmered. "You haven't changed much." "I have," he said softly. "You just haven't seen it yet." Over the next few weeks, fate, or maybe stubborn longing, kept pulling them together. He started showing up at the same cafe she loved, sometimes pretending it was coincidence. She stopped pretending she didn't look forward to it. They took small steps, coffee first, then walked around the Han River, the same place they once promised forever. One evening, as the city lights danced on the water, she asked quietly, "Why now, Hyen, after all these years?" He turned to her, hands in his pockets, eyes serious. "Because I finally realized that all the power I chased meant nothing without peace. And peace," he paused, gazing at her, "was you." Her heart trembled, but she didn't speak. Instead, she looked out over the river, the same river that once witnessed their first kiss. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she whispered. "Then let me earn it," he replied. "Day by day. I don't care how long it takes." The sincerity in his tone disarmed her completely, and though she didn't say it, she believed him just a little. Days turned into weeks. He sent her flowers sometimes. Nothing extravagant, just lilies and handwritten notes that said things like, "Thank you for smiling at me today." He invited her to his office one afternoon to consult on a project. She was hesitant but agreed. Watching her command the meeting room with her intelligence and poise reminded him of everything he'd lost, and why he wanted her back. Later, when everyone had left, he lingered near the window as she packed her laptop. "You were brilliant today," he said. She looked up, teasing. "Flattery again?" He smiled faintly. "No, truth this time." The sunset spilled through the glass, painting them in amber light. For a long second, they simply looked at each other. Memories, mistakes, and new beginnings tangled between them. She finally broke the silence. "You're really not giving up, are you?" He shook his head slowly. "I gave up once. Never again." Michelle exhaled, her voice soft as a whisper. "Then don't make me regret believing in you again." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough for her to feel his warmth. I won't. Not this time. That night, as she walked home through the glowing Seoul streets, she realized her heart was betraying her again, beating for the man she swore she was done with. But maybe love wasn't meant to be forgotten. Maybe it was meant to be found twice. And this time, Michelle decided she would let him try. Winter melted into early spring, and with it, Michelle's walls began to thaw. Baek Hyun didn't rush her. He didn't need to. He had learned the hard way that love wasn't a deal to be closed. It was a garden that needed patience. Every morning, she'd receive a message, short, warm, steady. Hyun, good luck with your presentation today. Hyun, eat something before your meeting. Don't skip breakfast again. Hyun, I'll be cheering for you quietly, wherever you are. Sometimes, she didn't reply, but she read every single one. Their friendship rekindled first, quietly, like an ember refusing to die. They started spending Saturday evenings walking through Bukshin Hanok village, the streets glowing with old Korean lanterns and laughter. He'd tell her stories of his family's business, how it grew, the pressure, the loneliness behind his wealth. She'd talk about life abroad, how she learned to rebuild after he left, how she found beauty in independence. Do you ever get lonely? She asked one evening, her voice soft against the hum of the night. Hyun smiled faintly. Every day since you left. Her heart clenched at the honesty. She tried to look away, but he caught her hand gently, fingers brushing, not gripping, just a quiet reminder that he was there. One rainy afternoon, he drove to her apartment unannounced, with an umbrella and 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate. Stalker behavior, she teased, though her smile betrayed her amusement. I call it timing, he said with that boyish grin that used to melt her. They sat by her window, watching the rain lace the glass. The city outside blurred like a painting. For the first time in years, she saw him not as the billionaire everyone feared, but as the man who once stayed up all night cooking ramen with her in a tiny Seoul apartment. He looked around her cozy space. Books, candles, sketches pinned to the wall. You've made this place feel like peace, he murmured. She tilted her head. And you still make everything sound like poetry. He chuckled quietly, then turned to her. You used to inspire poetry in me. The air shifted, so gentle yet so charged. She felt his gaze settle on her lips, but he didn't move closer. Not this time. Instead, he said softly, tell me what I have to do to earn you again. Michelle's throat tightened. Maybe, just don't stop showing up. I won't. Days became weeks of quiet reconnection. No grand gestures, no paparazzi, just the rhythm of trust being rebuilt. He took her to art galleries not to impress her, but to listen. She had a habit of staring too long at paintings, lost in thought. Once, in front of a watercolor of a sunset over Jeju Island, he whispered, you see the world differently. And you, she said softly, see people like they're puzzles you want to fix. He smiled at that. Maybe, but with you I never wanted to fix anything. Just understand. One evening, she invited him to her cooking class, a casual Friday thing she did for fun. Watching the billionaire CEO in an apron, struggling to chop onions properly, made her laugh so hard she nearly dropped her spoon. Careful, she said, moving behind him, guiding his hands. You're holding it wrong. He turned slightly, his breath brushing her ear. Then show me. Her heart fluttered. His warmth, the quiet steadiness of his presence, the scent of his cologne mixing with garlic and laughter. It all felt dangerously right. When she looked up, their eyes locked, and suddenly the kitchen went silent around them. Michelle, he whispered. I missed this. I missed us. Her breath hitched, but she managed to smile. We're not us yet. Not yet, he said softly. But we're closer than yesterday. By late spring, Seoul bloomed again, and so did they. They met often, sometimes at cafes, sometimes by the Han River. There were no labels, no promises, just the comfort of rediscovery. One night, she dozed off on his shoulder during a late drive home. He didn't wake her. He just parked by the river, watching the reflection of city lights dance on the water while holding her hand gently, afraid to let go. When she stirred awake, she whispered sleepily, "You still drive too fast." He chuckled softly. "And you still fall asleep when I talk." She smiled, half dreaming, half awake. "It's because I trust you again." Those words hit deeper than she could imagine. Hyan looked at her, really looked, and realized something rare. Money, fame, legacy. All of it felt lighter now because she was beside him again. For Michelle, every step back toward him was terrifying but beautiful. He wasn't the man who broke her heart anymore. He was the man learning to love her slowly, rightly, honestly. And as Seoul's skyline glimmered behind them, their hands intertwined. No grand declarations, no titles, just a quiet truth. Sometimes love doesn't need to start over. It just needs to continue, softer this time. By the time summer wrapped Seoul in its golden warmth, Michelle and Hyan had found a rhythm that neither dared to name. They weren't lovers. Not yet. But they weren't strangers either. They existed in a fragile, beautiful in-between, where every look lingered too long, every word carried weight, and silence often said what both were afraid to confess. Michelle had just finished a long day consulting for one of Hyan's companies. He insisted on driving her home, though she protested lightly at first. "You have drivers, you know," she teased. He smirked. "I'm not sending anyone else when I can see you myself." The car was quiet except for soft jazz and the city's heartbeat outside. Seoul at night shimmered, endless lights, the hum of traffic, the world moving while time slowed for them. Halfway through the drive, Hyan glanced at her and said quietly, "Can I show you something?" Before she could answer, he turned down a narrow road that led up a hill overlooking the city. The car came to a stop near a secluded park, and the skyline stretched before them. Han River glistening under the moon, towers sparkling like constellations. "It's beautiful," Michelle breathed, stepping out into the night air. He stood beside her, hands in his pockets. "When things get too loud, I come here. It's the only place I feel human again." She looked at him, the man everyone saw as untouchable, and saw the vulnerability in his eyes. "You don't show this side to many people, do you?" He smiled faintly. "Only the ones who matter." Their gazes locked, and for a heartbeat, the city disappeared. He reached out slowly, brushing a strand of her hair away from her face. His touch was feather-light, reverent, almost unsure. "Michelle," he murmured, "tell me I'm not imagining this, that you still feel it too." Her heart pounded. "I don't know what I feel, Hyan. You hurt me once." "I know," he said, voice raw, "and I'll spend every day proving I won't again." Her lips parted to speak, but he didn't give her words to hide behind. He leaned in, not to steal a kiss, but to rest his forehead gently against hers. No promises, no pressure, just warmth. The air between them trembled. She whispered, "You're different now." He smiled softly. "You changed me." Their lives began to intertwine in quiet, domestic ways. He'd stop by her office with lunch, claiming he was in the area. She'd drop by his penthouse with home-cooked food, teasing him about his expensive but empty kitchen. One evening, she caught him sitting on the floor of his living room, sleeves rolled up, helping his niece build a Lego castle. The sight disarmed her completely. "Beck Hyan, the mighty billionaire," she said, leaning on the doorway. Defeated by toy bricks, he looked up, smiling boyishly. "Don't underestimate Lego diplomacy." His niece giggled, and Michelle joined them, their laughter filling the marble room with warmth it had never known. Later, after his niece left, they lingered on the balcony with glasses of wine. Seoul's lights painted gold reflections across her skin, and Hyan couldn't look away. "You make this place feel less empty," he said quietly. She turned to him, her voice a whisper. "You make me forget why I built walls." He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining easily now. Felt natural, like something they'd been doing forever. Hyan was buried in paperwork when she appeared at the door, hair tied back, wearing one of his oversized shirts. "You're still working?" she asked softly. He looked up, exhaustion fading the moment he saw her. Someone has to keep this empire from collapsing. She smiled, walking over. You can save the empire in the morning. Tonight you need rest. Her gentle authority made him laugh. You always did know how to command a room. She perched on the desk edge, crossing her arms. Only when someone forgets he's human. Their eyes met, and the air shifted again. Intimate, unguarded. He stood, stepping close, his hand brushing her cheek. I don't forget when you're here, he murmured. For a moment time paused. Her heart thudded against her ribs. She could feel the heat of his body, the softness in his gaze. Not hunger, not demand, just deep, quiet wanting. Then, with a small smile, she whispered, Go to bed, Hayan. He chuckled slowly. Only if you promise to stay. She didn't answer, just turned and walked toward the hallway. But before she disappeared, she looked back with a teasing smile. Good night, Hayan. And just like that, the house didn't feel empty anymore. Over time, the nights became longer, the laughter easier, the silences softer. They were falling again, carefully, tenderly, not like before, but like two people who knew what losing each other felt like. He showed her his world, the boardrooms, the late flights, the heavy pressure of his name. She showed him hers, the little joys, the peace of simple mornings, the beauty in imperfection. Somewhere between those worlds they found balance. And one quiet evening by the river where it all began, Michelle said softly, Maybe this time we don't need forever yet. Maybe just now is enough. Hayan smiled, eyes full of devotion. Then I'll make every now worth it. They stood there, hands clasped, hearts steady. Two souls that had learned to love again without promises, without titles. Just faith. And that was enough. Rain has returned to Seoul. It came softly at first, like a whisper brushing against the city's glass towers, a sound only lovers and poets paid attention to. Michelle watched it from the wide window of Hayan's penthouse, wrapped in one of his cashmere sweaters. The world outside looked blurred, almost dreamlike. She sipped her tea slowly, letting the silence settle between them. Hayan stood across the room, phone forgotten on his desk, his eyes fixed not on the skyline but on her. There was something about the way she moved, calm, thoughtful, self-contained, that disarmed him. For a man used to controlling everything, Michelle was the one thing he never wanted to control again. He walked over quietly, his steps soft against the polished floor. Do you ever stop to realize, he said, his voice gentle, that you've become part of me every day? She turned to him, meeting his gaze with a faint smile. You say that like it's a bad thing. He shook his head. It's the only good thing. Her laughter was low, musical, the kind that filled a room without needing to echo. You're getting better at this, talking about feelings. He smiled. I'm learning from the best. They sat together on the couch, the rain tapping against the window like a secret rhythm. She tucked her legs under her, close enough for their knees to touch. Do you ever think about the past? She asked quietly. All the time, he admitted. But I'm done living there. She looked at him for a long moment. And what about the future? He leaned closer, brushing his thumb lightly across her hand. The future can wait. Right now, I just want this. The way he said this softly, reverently, made her heart ache. He wasn't the man who once loved her recklessly. He was steadier now, kinder, as though losing her had taught him how to hold something precious without breaking it. They sat like that for a while, saying nothing, letting the quiet do the talking. Outside, thunder rolled low in the distance. Michelle turned her head and found him watching her again. You look at me like you're memorizing me, she said. I am, he confessed. Every moment with you feels borrowed. I don't want to forget a single detail. Her breath caught, and she reached out, her fingers tracing the edge of his sleeve. Then stop borrowing. Just be here. That was all the permission he needed. He took her hand in his, lacing their fingers slowly. No rush, no grand declarations, just connection, real and fragile. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, and she leaned her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes. The rhythm of his his shoulder closing her eyes. The rhythm of his heartbeat was steady beneath her ear. She could feel his breath in her hair, slow and deliberate, like he was trying to match her calm. For a long while they said nothing. They didn't need to. The room was filled with warmth, the kind that didn't ask for more. It simply was. Later that night, they found themselves in the kitchen, barefoot and laughing as they tried to make late-night pancakes. Michelle's batter was too thick, Hyan's too thin. "This is a disaster," she said through laughter. He leaned against the counter, flour dusting his sleeve. "It's perfect." "Perfect?" she teased. "It's barely edible." He smiled, catching a streak of flour on her cheek with his thumb. "Still perfect." She froze, her laughter fading into a quiet stillness. The touch was light, almost hesitant. His hand lingered just long enough for her to feel the warmth behind it. "Hyan." He didn't move closer. He didn't need to. The tenderness in his gaze said everything words couldn't. "I don't want to lose this again," he whispered. She looked up at him, her heart full. "Then don't." And in that moment, between the smell of pancakes, the soft rain outside, and the gentle hum of city lights, they both realized they didn't need grand confessions or promises. They had now. And for the first time in years, now was enough. In the weeks that followed, their connection grew in quiet, simple ways. Morning texts turned into shared breakfasts. Late-night calls turned into peaceful silences on the same couch. Every stolen glance, every brush of hands, became a language all their own. And though neither dared to call it love again, not yet, it felt like love in all the ways that mattered. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the Han River, painting the sky in gold and rose, Michelle whispered softly, "Do you think we'll ever stop finding our way back to each other?" Hyan smiled, eyes reflecting the fading light. "Not in this lifetime." She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. No promises, no future plans, just a quiet certainty that somehow, after everything, their hearts had chosen each other again. And this time they were listening. Michelle sat by the window of Hyan's car, watching the glass towers of Gangnam glide past as they drove toward his company headquarters. She wasn't supposed to be nervous. She'd done consulting for him before, but today felt different. This time, she wasn't just a professional walking into his boardroom. She was the woman who had fallen asleep on his shoulder the night before, who now wore the faintest smile whenever she thought of him. Hyan noticed her silence and reached over, brushing his fingers against hers briefly before turning back to the road. "You don't have to be anxious," he said quietly. "They respect you." She looked at him, amusement flickering in her eyes. "They respect you. I'm just the consultant you happen to listen to." He smirked. "That's where you're wrong. You're the only person in that room who doesn't try to please me. That's why I listen." Her heart softened. He didn't say it for effect. He said it because it was true. Inside the glass conference room, Michelle was composed and brilliant as always. Her presentation on rebranding Beck Corporation's global image was sharp, fearless, and undeniably creative. The board members listened closely, some skeptical, some impressed. When she spoke about authenticity in leadership, her eyes met Hyan's across the table. He knew she was talking about more than business. After the meeting, as the others filed out, one of the directors lingered and murmured something quietly to Hyan. Something Michelle couldn't hear but recognized from the man's smirk. Hyan's jaw tightened. "That's enough, Mr. Choi," he said coolly. The director retreated with a stiff bow. Michelle sighed when they were alone. "What did he say?" Hyan hesitated, then met her gaze. "He asked if I was compromising company policy by letting my friend take the lead." Michelle blinked, then smiled faintly. "He meant girlfriend, didn't he?" Hyan exhaled. "He meant someone who shouldn't have a place in their world." She looked at him, her tone calm but steady. "Then let me prove I earned it." He nodded slowly, pride flickering in his eyes. "You already have." That evening, after a long day, she found him on the rooftop garden of the Beck Tower, the city glowing below like a constellation. He was standing near the edge, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking every bit the man who carried both power and weariness in his bones. "You disappeared after the meeting," she said softly, walking toward him. He turned to her, his expression easing. "Just needed air. From the pressure? From pretending it doesn't matter what they say about us." She moved closer, her voice quiet but firm. "Let them talk. We're not here to please anyone." He smiled faintly, the tension in his face breaking. "You always know how to make things sound simple. Because it is." She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining easily now. "We don't owe them an explanation." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just the woman he loved, but the calm he had been chasing for years. "I don't know how I'd get through this without you," he admitted. She squeezed his hand. "You'd survive. You always do. But now you don't have to be alone." The wind blew softly, lifting her hair. He brushed it aside and whispered, "You make even my storms feel quiet." Her heart melted. "And you make me believe that chaos can still be beautiful." Their connection deepened as days passed. Sometimes they shared dinner in his office, eating takeout while going through reports. Other nights, she'd fall asleep on his couch while he worked late, and he'd cover her with a blanket before sitting nearby, watching her breathe as the city lights flickered behind them. In the quiet hours between business and sleep, they began to understand the shape of their love. Not explosive or wild, but steady and sure, like a tide that never failed to return. One late night, after another long day of meetings, Michelle stood by his desk, watching him type. "You know," she said softly, "you don't always have to be the strongest person in the room." He looked up, eyes tired but tender. "Someone has to be." "Not with me," she said, stepping closer. "With me, you can rest." He didn't speak, just stood and pulled her into his arms, his chin resting on her hair. For a moment, the world fell away. The weight of his empire, the whispers of his board, the noise of soul beyond the glass. There was only warmth, her heartbeat against his, the quiet truth that love had found them again, this time with gentleness. In that stillness, Hyen realized something. He didn't want to keep his worlds separate anymore. He wanted Michelle in both, the quiet of his heart and the storm of his business. And for the first time, the thought didn't scare him. It made him breathe easier. Autumn came to Seoul with its quiet fire, crimson leaves sweeping down the streets, the air cool and full of memory. But for Baek Hyen and Michelle, the season brought something else too. Attention. First, it was small things. Episode 1 ends here, the next episode comes up soon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.